I'm going to show you something today that's been true since the Depression, and yet you've been taught the exact opposite. So I'm going to show you a way of owning real estate, whether this is rental properties, whether this is how much down payment you make, whether this is using a 30-year fixed or a 15-year fixed. So what we're going to talk about today, and the only book I've ever written, is called Two Ways to Be Debt-Free. One way, called the traditional method. Now, what have all your parents and grandparents and all the popular pundits told you should be done with a mortgage by the time you retire, and then you leave it that way? What are you supposed to do? Pay it off. Pay it off. And why are you supposed to pay it off? What's bad about a mortgage? Fair market value. Say the house is worth $500,000. It's a good round number. California and Hawaii, this gets you nothing, but that's what it is. Okay, so you're supposed to owe zero. Do we agree that's the goal that we're taught? Because this interest is bad, it's bad, it's bad. Okay? One thing I want to do, whether your home is owned free and clear, okay, I've done this for 81-year-old Vietnamese women. You don't get much more conservative than that. All the way down to young people. It's not an age, or it's just a reality. Let's go there. Whether you've achieved it now or whether you're trying to, you have people buy homes all the time and say, make a big down payment because my payment's lower, or use a 15-year fixed. Let's just go there and say, what's it like? If we've accomplished this, what characteristics of what destination? The way you measure investments is four things. Liquidity, right? Can I access my money? So if I say, give me $500,000, you can't touch it for 50 years. You like that? Most people don't. So I want to be able to access this. So liquidity is one of them. Safety. What does safety mean with investments?
I'm not going to lose any money.
Can I lose it, right? So rate of return. Rate of return. That's a pretty important one. Most people are going to ask about that with an investment. And then we have this one over here, slightly advanced, but probably the most important thing in all of financial planning, tax treatment. So all I'm doing, and this is very important, is saying, if we're being taught to put a giant chunk of money, do you know how many people I meet who have more money in their home than they've even saved in their total retirement account? I meet people all the time. They're like, $1 million home in Hawaii and $500,000 in an IRA. Or it used to be in California, they'd have a $500,000 home and $200,000 in an IRA. Saving money is difficult, but if you own a home for the right amount of time, it sometimes gets really big. So here, I'm just saying, if this is an investment that we put money into, either through a down payment, or through paying cash, or through a 30-year fixed mortgage where some of your payment goes, or you're trying to accelerate with a 15-year, you're putting money into this, agreed? That's an investment. We're going to measure it with the four ways we measure a wise investment. Number one, liquidity. Okay, home's paid off, or it's half paid, doesn't matter. Any equity inside of a home. How liquid is it? How easy is it to get? How do you get equity out of a home? You have to sell it or refinance, okay? That could be a line of credit, that could be a normal first mortgage where you do a cash out. So is it easy to get equity out of homes when you have an incredible job, a ton of equity in the home, interest rates are low, and the lending guidelines are loose?
Yes.
Yes. Is that always true?
No.
No. Is it easy to get equity out of a home when it's underwater in New Orleans? Is it easy to get equity out of a home that just burned down in the 2003-2007 California firestorms? Jersey Shore, Malibu when it falls off a cliff. If the home is compromised, it's very difficult to get to the equity. Do we agree? Can't sell it, can't refinance. Depreciation takes it away from you. What if rates just go up? You know, rates have not always been at 4, right? Today, if we have to pay 5, we're whining. And some of you that have been through the 80s might laugh at that, right? Because 5 was pretty darn low. Your first house might have been, 12% interest. If rates are high, if you can't show income, if you're retired, by the way, with a ton of assets that you're living off of, not guaranteed income from annuities, qualifying for a mortgage is not that easy. They don't care that much about the assets. They want to see income. If the house is compromised, if your income doesn't show up right, if the rates are too high, or frankly, if the products just don't exist. I was in the mortgage industry for a long time. 2008, 2009, when the world fell apart, all of the products just kept disappearing. We just had nobody lending. And so we couldn't get at it. This is not good or bad necessarily. It just says there are times, based on things you don't control, where home equity is not 100% liquid. Do you agree with me? If your house is worth 500 and it goes down to 400 and you sell it, 100 of your equity, you can't have it. You can't get it. You can't refinance and get it. There are times, and I go deeper in the book, where you can't get it, so we call it a low liquidity investment. Whereas if you have $500,000 sitting in the bank or inside of a cash value life insurance policy, you can call them up and just get it, right? So liquidity-wise, the home, not highly liquid, especially in times where it's hard to get. How safe is home equity? The money most at risk is any money you are putting in. Do you understand that? I used to call this depreciation insurance. Everyone that met me before 2008 did 100% cash out refinance on their property. Some people said no to me. Guess what I did after 2009? I went and tracked everybody who said no to me and watched what happened in their lives. And it was ugly. Some of them lost their jobs, spent their entire 401k trying to save the house, and then eventually lost the house. Where you'll learn through the book or today that 100% financing protects you from even those bad situations. Depreciation can take a home away. Only your money's at risk. It's a guaranteed loss. You can't get it back by selling. You can't get it back by refinancing. Let's go to New Orleans. Your house, New Orleans, this would be quite a house. Nicolas Cage, maybe. You have a house in New Orleans, and it's worth a lot of money, or $100,000, doesn't matter. It's underwater or destroyed or floating into the ocean. Can you refinance it? Can you sell it? No. Did you maybe have flood or hurricane insurance? Maybe. This is wrong. Okay, what I'm going to tell you is wrong, but our job as fiduciaries is to protect you from every possible thing that could go wrong and make sure that no matter what happens in the world, you're going to be okay. And this is a reality. Life insurance companies, if you die, you show the death certificate, they pay the claim. Property and casualty, car, auto insurance, fire, hurricane, flood, they can fight a little bit. I have people in San Diego, whose houses burned down in 2003, paid every single fire insurance bill the whole time they were there, and they still have not rebuilt their homes. The particular insurance company that had all these claims come in at one time, because they focused on San Diego, didn't want to pay all that money, so they send a big team of attorneys around to delay everybody. They have more money than you, they have better attorneys than you. You do not want to be in a fight with a national insurance company. It doesn't matter if what they're doing is right. If you can't get your money, it's not that safe. I don't know what those people are going to end up with because we're 12 years later, they haven't rebuilt. Talk about the enjoyment of a home. If you can't rebuild it, not a lot of fun. So if the home is destroyed, your insurance company pays the claim right away, good, that's fine. If they fight you at all, that's frustrating. Depreciation, though, is a big deal. So is it a safe investment? As an investment, the money we chose to put in it, we say it's fairly low because it can experience losses, and I can show you example after example all over the country. What's the rate of return? Just pretend you bought a house for $500,000, so you take money out of investments, stops earning, you plunk it down on a house, and what's the bank pay you for the use of that money?
It's just utility.
So that money, do you earn interest on it? Does the bank pay you a flat amount? Is it indexed? Is it variable? Do you make any money on the $500,000? Does anybody send you a check?
Only if there's appreciation.
Okay, and that's awesome that you said that. Appreciation on a house, if I bought it with 100% financing and it went up 10% from 500 to 550, I made $50,000. Agreed?
If you sell it.
If I sell it or refinance. A home that you pay all of your $500,000 cash into and stop earning interest, worth $500, goes up 10% to $550, you make $50,000. Appreciation is 100% separate from the decision of whether or not to put your money inside of a house. You get the appreciation no matter what mortgage you have. It's not a rate of return. It's a function of owning a home. You should own a home. You should own it the right way, or the safe way, or the way that fits with your beliefs, is what I'm saying. So rate of return on every dollar you stick inside of a house and say, I don't want to earn interest on, 0. Tell a lie loud enough and long enough, and what happens? Okay? Tax treatment. When you have no mortgage payments on a home, you're not paying any mortgage interest. Canadians drool over our mortgages. Your tax deduction's gone. Do we agree? So if I buy a home, okay, and I have a $400,000 mortgage and it's costing me $20,000 a year in interest, I can deduct $20,000 a year off of my income. Is that true? When I don't have a mortgage, that deduction is gone. Okay, what are we told to do? Pay off your house, postpone taxes to a later date using 401ks, IRAs, because you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. Have you heard that baloney before? And get your kids out of the house, right? So some people's kids still live with them in their 60s and 70s, but most people don't. So if you keep the same income you did while you were working and you have no mortgage deduction, no deduction for kids, and you're not contributing to qualified plans where you used to get a deduction, you have same income with no deductions, most people end up paying more taxes than they ever have in retirement. Guess what else, by the way? Guess what determines whether you pay taxes on your Social Security income? If you take money from IRAs and 401ks. If you did what the government told you to do and used their plan, they created it, by the way. They created this thing called the qualified plan where you get a tax deduction when you put in $6,000 and you pay taxes when you take out $60 every year. They created that. Their job is to raise taxes. If you went with that plan and you take income out of there, not only do you pay taxes, which they control whether they go up or down, they're now allowed to tax 85% of your Social Security. Does that sound great? Biggest scam ever, ever. It's the best scam, biggest scam ever done. So you pay off a mortgage. By definition, you have no more tax deductions as far as this money is concerned. If someone is never taught what I'm about to teach you, which is very rare, I want you to do this. I like this better than refinancing your house and going and buying a bunch of stupid stuff, right? And then you just have debt in your life. That's not what we suggest. You don't take money out of a house to just add payments and have debt. However, when I went and studied wealthy individuals, non-for-profits, corporations, when I went and studied and said, why is Donald Trump not paying off his houses? Why are these people you wouldn't even recognize, why do they still have mortgages? I could pick any insurance company on the planet, run a financial statement for you, and show you that they have $34 billion in assets and $31 billion in debt. Why are they so stupid? Why don't they just pay off their debt? Why don't they pay off the debt? Any guesses? Leverage and arbitrage. Every bank and every insurance company is 100% in business to find more debt. They're trying to get you to give them money that they will pay you interest on. To say debt is bad is the silliest thing you'd ever possibly imagine. They pay us commissions to get them into debt. That is exactly the opposite of what Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman say, because wealthy individuals and corporations understand if you're paying 2 or 3 and earning 4 or 5, you're making 20, 30, 40% rate of return. It's called arbitrage. What's the oldest way of making money in the book? Buy this wholesale, sell it what? Any arguments that wholesale retail is a sound business strategy? We agree with it. It has a sister. It's called arbitrage. It may not be a name you've heard of. You can see me on YouTube talking about it. Arbitrage is borrow low, earn high. It's the wholesale retail of the lending industry. So what's the balance sheet method look like? If possible, if you're a veteran or it was before 2008, we'd go ahead and try to owe as much as we possibly could. So if you borrow $500,000 and you have an equity savings account where you took the equity out of the house and you just stuck it somewhere else. Today I'm not going to be able to teach you where to put it. Where you're going to end up after this conversation is, that's awesome. I totally agree with you. How do I pay the higher mortgage? Where do I put the money? I know where you're going to end up. I've taught this thousands of times. I got so sick of teaching this that I wrote a book, and now Derek makes me teach it again. Nice guy, right? So this was a 3.5-hour seminar, and I said, there's got to be an easier way to say this, and came out with this. So the people that utilize this strategy are saying, I'm not anti-liability. I don't mind liabilities. When you study these wealthy companies, they know how to use liabilities, big time. Anti-debt that you can't pay by snapping your fingers creates slavery, and we don't want that. But if you have $500,000 in this pocket, and you owe somebody $500,000 in this pocket, so anytime you wanted to, you go, I'm done. And you go back to this way, which is what the wealthy do, or the insurance companies will say, why do they keep these liabilities when they have the ability to pay it off? Haven't they heard Susie Orman talk about how bad your mortgage is? Yes, they just think she's wrong and kind of silly. So let's look at it. Why do they think this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, liquidity. If you have an equity savings account, if you don't put the money inside the actual piece of property, something can happen to, or you have to ask someone else's permission to get it out. If you keep it somewhere else where we teach you and keep it liquid, If the money's somewhere that you control, like all of your assets now, just get it. It's 100% liquid. Keep our money very highly liquid. Now, if the world falls apart again and valuable properties drop in half, do you see any value to my clients having a bunch of money to buy when things are cheap? Here, everything goes down, you just go, crud, it went down. I'm a part of that. Here, things go down, and you go, should I pick up a couple more of these? Wait till it goes back up and sell them or rent them? When you have access to your money, whether it's a bad thing or a good thing, having access to money puts you in a great position. Safety. The balance sheet method. If the value of the home, and we have the same fair market value. I didn't even write it up here, but the same fair market value of $500,000. The house is worth $500,000 no matter what loan you do. If you separate the money first, and this drops to 350. When the homes drop to 350 or 300 or 250 in Las Vegas, guess what they did? Either nothing, because you don't have to do anything. You just live in the home. It's an irrelevant number, just like over here. If it goes up and down and you want to live there, no big deal. Or they called the bank and said, may I please sell for less than I owe you? Which is called a what? Short sale. And guess what the bank said? Sure. And guess what we still had? Some of those people have taken some of this money, gone back and bought another home with a reverse mortgage and lived for free for the rest of their life. For free for the rest of their life because they protected the money before the depreciation happened. Your equity is safe if you put it somewhere that can never, ever, ever, ever go down. Not if you just cross your fingers and go, I sure hope as all the baby boomers' bodies start to hurt and they sell their $4,000 two-story homes, that all these young people can afford to buy them at the price they want and we don't experience depreciation. Demographics is bad for home prices. There's other things that are good. The demographics of who owns the valuable homes and who they can sell them to when they move into nursing homes or one-stories is not looking good. Very high safety if you're not crossing your fingers hoping that nothing bad happens in the neighborhood and that interest rates. By the way, interest rates going from 4 to 8, will that change the price of your home, the value, what people can afford to pay? This is old school real estate. We didn't even think about this anymore because we had the second depression is what affected. Normal ups and downs of interest rate affect what young people or working individuals can afford to pay, which affects how much your home is worth. By the way, yeah, if these drop to 350, homes that used to be worth like 650 are now 475. So you take your 500, buy a giant, beautiful home, and now you're in that. How about rate of return? You tell me this. Do you believe a lot of people say that you should pay off your mortgage? Is that a pretty standard thing to say? Okay, I meet a person. They've got assets for $100,000. They're making 6%, which equals $6,000. I keep it very simple. No amortization, just look at these numbers. So this is a positive, and they have a mortgage, okay, at 4%, which because of tax deductions costs 2.8. You understand tax deductions? If you're paying $30,000 a year for a deduction, it comes off your income before you pay taxes, which saves you taxes you are paying. So no 4%, it doesn't cost you 4%, it costs you about 2.8, which I can show you offline. So this is costing $2,800 a year. Do you think any financial advisor on the planet who's actually paying attention and carries the licenses where they have to do what's right for you says, why don't you take every single dollar in your life that's for emergencies, for compounding and for retirement, that's making you $6,000, and pay off this mortgage because Susie Orman says they're bad and it's costing you $2,800. Do you think anybody gives that advice? This is the opposite. This is the exact flip of what I'm saying. You have the assets, you shouldn't pay off a mortgage. If you can get the assets with a mortgage, what should you do? No one does that. Nobody says you have an extra $1,000 a month and your assets are making 6%, but your mortgage is costing 2.8. Where should I put the $1,000 a month? You should save 2.8 instead of make. No one gives that advice. It's only when you get to taking money out of your house that the tradition nerve inside of people's bodies gets a little squirrely and they go, ah, and they freak out. I will tell you, disclosure, this may not be as comfortable for you as this. There's only one reason anybody ever says no to me, and that's emotions. They go, I agree with you, I just feel weird. I couldn't sleep at night, or my mom would spank me, right? When she dies, we'll come back and do this, right? You give them the book and they can read it, you have me over for dinner, whatever it is. You can't say no financially. It is an emotional thing where we were told, you know why? Do you know where this lie came from? In the Depression, so prior to the Depression, a mortgage could be called for any reason at any time. If the bank said, I want my money, our ancestors had 90 days to come up with the money. So just picture the mortgages you had in your 30s and 40s when you couldn't afford the home. And if they called you and gave you 90 days, we were like, well, this is why I have a mortgage, because I didn't have the money. But when the bank calls and says you're losing your home because you didn't do anything wrong, and you're on the streets during the time of the Depression, that leaves a wound. Now, mortgages changed instantly. The 30-year fixed mortgage was created. They don't even have 30-year fixed mortgages in other countries. So it's not a normal thing that's been around forever. It was designed because of this wound. They said the mortgage is gone in 30 years, but more importantly, they changed the rule that even though the wound is still there, and we still all believe this, it changed everything, everything. They said the bank cannot call the mortgage due unless you don't make your payment. So I used to buy houses where the payment for a $900,000 house was like $1,000 a month. And they'd take all the interest I wasn't paying them and tack it back onto the debt. Because I'd say, listen, if all I have to give you is $1,000 a month and I can never lose my house for the rest of my life, and I'm not giving you another $3,000, but I'm putting it over here in investments and you're adding it to my debt, I'm like doing a refinance every month. You can't lose a house unless you make while you're making your payments. So the most important thing is having oodles of money to be able to make payments during hard times. Very high rate of return because it's arbitrage. What is arbitrage? If you borrow $100,000 at 5%, forget amortization, it costs you $5,000 a year. We are renting money. I have an assistant and I pay her. Why do I pay my assistant? Because I believe I'll make more money with the work she does or the time she saves me. Okay? We're renting something of value. Paying on purpose. Why do insurance companies and banks pay us interest? It's because of what they're going to do with the money. You earn 6% on $100,000. So we're earning $6,000 a year. Okay? This is a 1% arbitrage. I can no longer even count the number of people in the beginning of my career who said, why would I go through all this crazy stuff and upset my parents and feel weird to make 1%? It's not 1%. It's a 1% arbitrage. The banks and insurance companies fight each other, drool, pay commissions, do anything stepping on each other's toes, pay bonuses up to 12% up front to get into debt because of this. Because what's the rate of return? I spent $5,000, I made $6,000. My profit, do we agree, is $1,000? Forget taxes right now because I'm going to show you where to keep your equity that's tax-free if we end up working together. $1,000. How do you calculate the rate of return on investments? What did I make versus what I put in? 1,000 divided by 5,000. We're at a 20% rate of return. Are any of your investments making 20% rate of return without having negative years? Tax-free. You cannot find a better investment than what I'm teaching you. I would borrow $6 billion tomorrow if they would lend it to me. From anybody. So would the banks. So would the insurance companies. Now this here, okay, the best money on the planet is home equity. I mean, there are things I don't even have time to show you today that it would blow your mind on the ways you can use home equity to do Roth conversions. If you have kids who are putting money into 401ks, you can supersize their retirement by taking, so $17,000 a year in a 401k at 6% turns into $1.3 million taxable. $17,000 to pay for a mortgage from your house for a child where the $300,000 goes and grows tax-free, $1.7 million tax-free. You can supercharge your kids' retirement plans understanding how to utilize mortgages and 3 or 4 rules that I can teach you. This arbitrage, if you can make it tax deductible, if that can be tax deductible, it's not going to cost you $5,000 a year. It's going to cost you, depending on your tax bracket, let's say it's $3,000 a year. You're making $105,000. You have $5,000 deduction. You bring the $105,000 to $100,000. Therefore, you don't pay taxes on it this year where you used to. If you're only spending out of pocket, when all the taxes are considered, $3,000 to make the $1,000 that you keep because it's tax-free, we're up to 33% rate of return, aren't we? So this is the rich man's Roth IRA, which Tony Robbins writes about in his new book. It's what E.F. Hutton came up with. It's what Douglas Andrew has taught in this area for years and years and years. And I made it better. And I'm not being arrogant. If I show you how Patrick Kelly, who wrote Tax-Free Retirement, Douglas Andrew, who wrote Misfortune 101 and a gazillion other books that say the same thing, and then David McKnight, who wrote The Power of 0%, How to Be in a 0% Tax Bracket. If I show you the tool all 3 of them use, I'll say, here's how they design it, and it's great. And then I'll show you how I design it. It'll kill it. Because 4 years into my career, I learned a dirty little secret that nobody in the insurance industry wants us to know. And there's a way of eliminating commissions or dropping commissions, where the last guy I did this for, when I said, okay, we do this 20 years from now, what's your account worth? These guys' way, it was $270,000. My way was $750 tax-free. It's a huge, huge difference maker. So most insurance companies and banks and people that understand arbitrage are trying to get more debt in their life because they're earning 50 to 250% rate of return on that money. Nothing's better than arbitrage. But having that mortgage payment is very, very useful. There are things you can do with this mortgage payment that would absolutely blow your mind. And I'll erase this and show you since we have some time. I met people, I was in the mortgage industry first, so I started teaching this by saying, I don't know what mortgage to give you or what type of a down payment you should make until I teach you these two different ways of being debt-free, these two destinations we're going to aim at. Our plan and the tools we use need to be the ones that get us to these destinations safely and quickly. So I'd say, it doesn't matter where I am, but for you guys, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, which way do you want me to help you be debt-free? The first 2.5 years, every single person that met me in my office said, this one. And I said, you don't know how to do it, but we're talking about take every dime of equity out of your house and put it somewhere safe that's earning more than the mortgage, right? And they all said yes. And then an attorney came in. If any of you know attorneys, they're wired differently, and he broke my streak, darn it. So I can't say I had 100%. So this is the two different ways of being debt-free. You don't need to understand how to do it, because I haven't even taught you that. Conceptually speaking, by show of hands, can you see why some people choose this one? Okay, this is a way of saying what's true, not what's popular or what are others doing. If you look at the average lifestyle in the United States for the retired person and the results they're getting, I don't want to do what others are doing at all. I studied the 3 pillars of financial services in America. Pay off your house, postpone taxes to a later date when you're going to be in a lower tax bracket, and spread your money around a diversified portfolio of all things that can go down. I studied them, who set them first, who makes money from them, what's changed. I don't agree with any of them, not one of them, because the truth sets you free. When you look at what's true about who created the qualified plan, what actually happens if you save taxes on the $6,000 and pay taxes on the $60,000. What happens if taxes go up? What's it doing to your Social Security? Why do these people only teach you to put money in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and diversify amongst only things that can go down? So can I erase this? I'm going to erase this, and I want to show you a little trick, and then we can wrap it up, and we can talk afterwards if anybody just wants to come talk. This is called money laundering. How do you like that term? Or divorcing the IRS. How do you like that one? Okay? So what happens when you get a divorce? You split up the assets, right? So there's a really easy way to divorce the IRS. You've got, watch this. Let's go with $500,000 house. Okay, fair market value. They owe nothing. Come over here, $400,000 IRA. It doesn't matter whether this is you or whether it's in an IRA or 401k, but would you agree that there are people throughout the United States with some version of this where they paid off the house and they saved money where the IRS told them to? By the way, you put the and IRS together, it spells what? Theirs, thank you. So they think it's theirs. So they came out with the idea, hey, why don't you save taxes today and postpone them to a later date? Where's our country right now? As far as doing great financially or kind of in trouble? Okay, so everybody unanimously, do we think taxes are going down or up? Up. If you think taxes are going up, you would never say, let's postpone taxes to a later date when when taxes will be higher. It's a big ripoff, okay? So how do you get a divorce? Well, it's very easy. Like any divorce, you call Derek and say, I want to make this a Roth. You split up the assets. The IRS gets 140 in taxes, and now you end up with 260 in a Roth. It's totally tax-free. That's one way to do it. And frankly, when people want to do that, I tell them borrow the 140 from your house, get a divorce, and now you're getting a tax deduction making payments on taxes. What? That's great. We don't always do it this way. You don't want to do it in 1 year. But there's a better way. When you have, I don't want to draw on you, when you have home equity and qualified plans, oh my gosh, is this a marriage made in heaven? So, so beautiful to me. I'm such a geek. I love this stuff. When you have both of these in your life, particularly if this is an IRA that you don't need or we're going to leave to loved ones or whatever it is, I come along and say, well, wait a minute. I teach 2 ways to be debt-free and say, which camp do you want to be in? And you go, well, I like the balance sheet method, but I don't understand it, and it makes my knees shake a little bit, right? I walk you through the whole process. Say, what if we borrowed $400,000 from this home? That's a positive. We have $400,000 to go grow. We only had 4 in the IRA, and every advisor on the planet's going to go, how do we grow this? How do we grow this? How do we grow this? Should we use annuities? Should we use stocks, right? Everyone's fighting to say, how do we get from 6 to 7% here? It's all taxable anyway. The more you make, the more government gets. I come along and say, well, let's do this. Let's take money out of the house. So do we agree as a positive, the very first thing that happened is I just doubled the amount of money in your life earning compound interest. And your home still appreciates, right? So if the home goes up 10%, you make 50 grand on the value of the home. This goes up 10%, you make 40. But we have another one. If it goes up, you make 40 tax-free. So right away we have a positive. Bam, doubled your assets. But there's a negative, which is what? Interest, okay? So I don't know what it's going to be. Mortgage guys, who knows if it's going to be $25,000 a year or whatever it is. I really miss interest-only loans. Really bad. I liked interest-only loans a lot. So let's say this costs $25,000 a year to rent the money. Okay, let's stop for a minute. Basic investing. If I put 100 grand somewhere, year one, and I wait 10 years, and it makes 6%. Okay? It's worth 179, roughly. Compounding once a year. What if I fund it slowly? 10,000 a year, 10,000 a year. Okay? So I'm talking about what's better, a lump sum or funding slowly if you're putting the same amount of money in. Which one ends up better? If you were to guess, putting it in first or slowly? You're guessing slowly? This ends up being about 138 or something like that, 132. So if you put it all in, it's all earning interest right away, it's all compounding, it's all bigger everything, it's beautiful. This is, I've got it written down, this is 35% more money over 10 years. In our environment, that is nothing to shake a stick at, okay? So if you can get lump sums of money instead of putting money in slowly, which is why I teach kids to rent their parents' equity instead of using 401ks, because they get it all up front, they end up with like 70% more money, plus it's tax-free. That's just a good, sound financial principle. So, what did we just do with getting a mortgage? We rented a big fat chunk of money that gets to go somewhere up front. And we're making slow payments on it. Oh, beautiful. What they teach you is bad is so, so good. How do we make the payments? Well, I've got 9 or 10 different ways I do this for people. Pay off a car, redirect what you're paying for the car. Stop contributing to retirement accounts and redirect that. Stop gifting kids money, put it towards the mortgage, and make them a beneficiary on the life insurance part of it. Whatever it is. The most beautiful plan on the planet is put this into an annuity that gives you $25,000 a year, or take $25,000 a year out, or I'm doing real rough numbers, so they may not, but if you take money out of IRAs and use it to pay tax-deductible mortgage expenses, guess what just happened? Say you're making $100,000 a year before you meet me. Okay? Making $100,000 a year before you meet me. And you see in part of my plan, I'm saying you need to take $25,000 a year out of this IRA. That's another $25,000 of income. So your income's now $125,000. What's that going to do to your taxes? What is it? They're higher. You took taxable income out of an IRA, which also is going to mess up your Social Security. Sometimes this costs you, this 25 costs you 37, 40 grand, the way they tax your Social Security. It's called the tax torpedo. Look it up. It's horrible. Huge scam. I know advisors, the only thing they do for business is tax torpedo. Just talk to people about this and how do we go from bad money, IRAs, to good money, Roths and life insurance. So our income went up, so it's taxable income. Do we agree that IRAs are taxable income and that's kind of a booger, especially if they raise taxes? But what if we use it to pay this? If we structure the mortgage properly or you do a free home upgrade, it's guaranteed. If you're in the same house, it's not always guaranteed, but I'll show you how to maximize it. But if we can make this tax deductible, now we have a deduction, tell me if I lose you, off of income that brings you back down to where you were before you met me. But didn't we get $25,000 out of an IRA? Okay, so Doug Andrews himself used to teach a class called How to Get $600,000 Out of Your IRA Without Any Tax Consequences. And he'd have you do $1 million mortgage at 6% back then, interest only, pay the $60,000 a year for 10 years from the IRA. We're laundering money. I mean, that's an evil term, but you understand what's happening? We're cleansing this money. We're getting a divorce, which is also not the most positive term. I've named this thing like 4 times and they're all negative. I got to find a positive name, right? Let's call it Happy Land. Here's Happy Land, right? So using IRA money to pay mortgages to let non-taxable money grow tax-free, there's a 30-year average. If you went 30 years ago and put the money in on today's low interest rates in these investments and said, how would I have done? It's 8.2% tax-free with no losses. True compounding. You can't make that anywhere. I don't have a lot of money with my clients in investments, like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or managed money. I'm not anti-investments. I can beat the socks off of almost any money manager without losses and have your family have twice as much money if you die and provide an extra $1 million of long-term care that you don't pay for. So why in the world would I go to investments and try to make taxable money if I can make tax-free? Now, do musicians make good money? I heard it depends. I heard if they're good enough. As a percentage, if there's 1 million great musicians, are most of them making a killing or are most of them waitresses and waiters or whatever, carrying a job?
The wannabes.
Okay, if you study musicians, you'll find they don't do that well as a whole. It's a hard way to go. But doesn't Taylor Swift and Billy Joel exist? If you go study any of the tools that Derek and I use, annuities, cash value life insurance, modified endowment contracts, if you study any of them, you're going to hear all negatives. I've been doing this 11 years. I've had thousands of people come back into my office and go, okay, I took what you said and I went, and everybody says it's stupid. Musicians don't make great money. That's one way to study it. Is a Crown Victoria a great car? A good car, right? Is it going to beat a Ferrari? When the police departments buy Crown Victorias, do they just leave them stock and send the people out there and go, just, I hope you can drive as fast as the other guys so you have the same cars, or do they fix them up? They change them. It's what you do after market that changes whether an annuity or a life insurance or even a stock is actually good. There's ways to use all these tools. So Tiger Woods, if I tell him to go to Kmart and buy some clubs, and he gives me his great expensive clubs, does that mean I'm going to beat him? It's not the tools, it's how you use the tools. You understand? You can do stuff inside of, and I'll just bring up life insurance here for a second. I keep my home equity in life insurance. You can do stuff inside of a life insurance policy you cannot do anywhere else on the planet, and you're not going to find it on the internet. And now with Derek, I know 2 people in the entire country doing what I'll teach you if we end up talking to each other. It's very, very revolutionary. It changes everything. It took me 4 years to learn it, and guess why nobody taught me? Everyone above Derek and I makes less money if I do what's right for you. You know what fiduciary means? You do, because you had to pass the real estate exam. What's fiduciary? Fiduciary. What's that responsibility mean? Yeah. Fiduciary responsibility says this investment's better for you, but this one pays 8% and this one pays 6%. A fiduciary following their responsibility can't do that. Any good person following the golden rule is not going to do it anyway. But we lose our licenses if we do anything that's not best for you. It took me 4 years to learn what I'm going to teach you. Once I learned it, I didn't even have an option. I wouldn't do it morally anyway, but I don't even have an option to do it the bad way. When you learn that, you'll get really excited. So you may not understand this entire thing right now, but I can tell you, and it sounds arrogant, and I'm fine doing that, because when Michael Jordan walked onto the court, he felt a level of confidence. When Frank Sinatra walked onto the stage, he felt a level of confidence. When I meet somebody who's never met me, and I say, let's talk about your finances, I know before I even meet you, I can lower your taxes, I can give you more safety, I can make you worth more when you die, I can give you long-term care that you don't have now that you're not paying for, I can give you more rate of return, more taxable income, protect you from all kinds of things that might happen to you without costing you a penny. It's what you spend now. It's called asset optimization. Should home equity be in a home? No, it's not a great place for it. Where should it be? It should be out in an equity savings account where it gives you 8.2% rate of return plus a death benefit plus long-term care. Should IRAs be in IRAs creating income? No, because it causes your Social Security to be taxed and you don't get very much income. What are IRAs good for? They're good for paying for mortgages. What a beautiful, should cash be sitting in the bank making 0? Do you guys know about the cash alternatives that are out there? Why do people put cash? I know people that have 30 to 300 sitting in the bank. And I say, you do realize the FDIC insurance right in the fine print says if they don't have the money when your bank goes out of business, they can wait 20 years. So the thing that makes you feel safe there, it's not even safe. Bank of America, you've heard of them? One bank, Bank of America, goes out of business, the entire FDIC fund is gone. We lost 5,000 banks in the Depression and 0 insurance companies. Banks are not safe. Banks are fun and convenient and brick. You can touch them, they're convenient. I meet people with cash in the bank because they might need it, right? The competitor, which I can't teach you today, the competitor to bank cash that's 100% liquid gives a 12% bonus, averages 5%, has a death benefit, so your family gets 2.5 times what you put in if you happen to die suddenly, and has long-term care if you get sick, versus we'll pay you nothing and it's not safe. But no one gets to hear about this one. No one gets to hear about this. Nobody gets to hear about this. Derek is such an awesome guy to bring me in and let you hear about this. This is non-traditional. This is contrarian. I don't care if Hitler says it or Jesus says it. 2 + 2 = 4. Nothing changes that. Anybody says 2 + 2 = 5, no matter how popular they are, no matter how many books they've read, no matter what they went through, 2 + 2 does not equal 5. There's things that I'll show you, and you'll go, I cannot even believe that that's true. You might go check and see if they're true, hear a bunch of people talk bad about them, and then we'll just go back and go, well, let's just find out if they're true. Okay? Has anybody shown you how when they say annuities are not liquid, it's total and complete hogwash baloney? It is so, so silly. Would you ever take 100% of the money in your life that you've saved to live off of and spend it on any emergency and have no income for the rest of your life? So do we agree that 100% liquidity is not necessary and you'd never do it anyway? One time you'd do this. When's the only time, what type of an emergency where you'd spend all of your money trying to stay alive? If you have a medical emergency, annuity penalties are waived. It's 100% liquid for the expensive stuff. Now, non-medical emergencies. Can you think of anything non-medical that's more expensive than replacing a roof? Car, if you drive nice ones, roof, look, 40, 50 grand, maybe. You're still going to have less income and assets for the rest of your life, but do we agree that 50, if you replace the entire roof on a big home, maybe, but how many of you had a non-medical surprise in your life that cost you $150,000? Kids going to college, right? But you can plan for that. So this is typical, but even if it happens, somebody's got $1 million, and I'm going to stop after this, Kayleen, don't kick me off, okay? You're not allowed to put all your money into the annuities. They won't even let you. I'm going to exaggerate it. Say somebody fell in love with annuities. So they did 75% of their total net worth in an annuity with a 10% bonus with American Equity, so they gave you $75,000. Bonus. So we have $250 not in annuities. Guess where I put it? Da, 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 da. Totally liquid, tax-free, blah, 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 okay? $250 not in annuities. Big chunk of money in annuities. You go online, you study annuities, and everybody says bad things and they're not liquid. Stuff they say is shamefully wrong. Shamefully wrong. Should not even be allowed. Okay, how liquid are you? This one's almost 100% all the time, the way I build it. So we have to have a non-medical emergency for 250 grand before we even start talking about the annuity. Okay? Now, they gave you a bonus. You can also find people on the internet saying that bonuses and annuities are wrong, and that's shameful. This bonus is the answer to everything. If you don't need the money, you have an extra $75,000 making you money. That's good. Make 10% your first year in a conservative investment. If you do need the money, even in the first year, and you take 50% of it out, okay, so 350, 375, you need, I don't know what emergency, this is a big roof, you guys, I don't know where you live, to make 250 and 375 and be willing to have that much of your income drop by 60% for the rest of your life. This is half of the money. You took 50% of the money out of an annuity. They're going to penalize you 20%. Oh my gosh, these jerks. 20% of 375 equals the bonus they gave you. It's house money. Nothing's more liquid that has the benefits of an annuity, unless you just stick it all in the stock market and say, I hope I don't lose a bunch of money. Guess what? Stocks aren't liquid. When it's up, you don't want to take it out. When it drops, you don't want to take it out. It's not liquid, right? So, other than that, I don't have any strong opinions on the subject. Why don't I just teach you the most important thing I've ever learned about money? Would you rather be averaging or earning? Earning. What's the difference? You're going to be mad. I mean, I won't have time to teach the whole thing, but I have videos on YouTube about this too. Don't they tell you in the big mass media and all the financial planning firms that if you leave money in the stock market long enough, over time it makes 7, 8, 9%? 100% lie. 100%. Tell a lie long enough and loud enough. So I have $100,000. The last drop was 37%. Let's just use 50 because that's a nice round number. If you have $100,000 and it goes down 50%, do we agree you have 50 left? Half your sheep died. Plague. Okay? They can't have babies anymore. Down 50. So every financial planning software on the market that I've looked at, every Morgan, Witter, Dean, Stanley, or whatever, I can't say the actual names, their attorneys will come after me. They're all going to do this. They're all going to say, okay, year one, we're negative 50. So when you get your statement every month, these calculations are on there. Next year, it doesn't happen like this, by the way. It goes negative 50, then it goes 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. It takes 5 years to get back. But next year, positive 50. Holy cow. And we're back to 100, right? $75,000. We lost 50 on 100, we made 50 on 50. And if you're taking an income out of this thing, no chance you ever have the income you want, ever. But even this, the way today is set up, even with the Securities and Exchange Commission supposedly protecting you, this is what's allowed to be put into every number that you see. It went down, it went up, we add them together, that's 0, divided by 2 years, so what are we averaging?
0.
This 7 to 8% means nothing. You're not making money. Can you find a time where if you bought stock or the S&P at the right time, you would have compounded? Yes, you can. This means nothing. And even if it happens, you have to pay taxes. I talked to my Harvard professor brother, my Cal Poly Pomona professor father, and my math high school teacher mom. We're really geeks. I said, what fixes this? Is it going below 0 or losses that give us baloney math? And if you go on YouTube and look up my name, you'll probably see this one. A bunch of different ways to earn 20%. You put in $1,000. This one's averaging 20, this one's averaging 20, this one's averaging 20. One of them were down 20%, one of them were out of money. If you go to Las Vegas and you make 140% day one, and then you leave like every good person does, right? No. You stay too long and you lose 100% of it, you average 20% over 2 days. You have no money. Is that how you want your retirement and your inheritance compounding? It's hogwash. It's a huge, giant, well-funded lie. So this here could be running out of money. Best possible scenario here is that it actually compounds at 7 or 8, which means the market gave you 7 or 8 every year. It doesn't do that. It goes up and down. You're making capital gains, not compound rate of return. Eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. What fixes this? Indexing. Market goes up, you get some. Market goes down, you go sideways. Market goes up, you get some. Market goes down, you get sideways. Never lose money again is the answer to compounding your money and getting rid of this baloney math. Because of something bad in the market, if you know how to use the right tools, it's really, really good for you. The market drops quick, comes up slow. Have you ever noticed that? Drops fast, there's a gravity in the panic selling, and it doesn't go bing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you use the market, you just lost 7 years of compounding, and now you're back to a place you've already done. If they flew me 3/4 of the way here and took me back to San Diego and started again, I'd be so angry, right? Already did this. If you use the green line, if you never lose money ever again, you go up, up, and then these downs, you just pause, pause. And then we get 5 years of growth from the high point. So beautiful. And the market does it all the time. There's 57 years. It usually goes down once and then grows for a while, once, grows for a while, once, and grows for a while. So 3 rules of money. Spend less than you earn, never lose money, and don't pay taxes. Simple as that. Good? Thank you for listening.